Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. It was an emotional press conference in Treaty 8 territory where an Alberta woman described losing her baby. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
A Big Stone Cree Nation woman is calling out Edmonton's Misericordia Hospital after she gave birth without medical assistance. Her daughter died. Pearl Gambler spoke at a press conference with the support of Treaty 8 Grand Chief Arthur Noski and her lawyer, Sheila McGregor. Gambler filed a lawsuit against an unnamed physician, the hospital, and Covenant Health, which owns and operates the hospital, on October 12, 2022. According to the $1.3 million statement of claim, her trouble began on June 11, 2020. Ms. Gambler attended the obstetrical department of the hospital as advised by redacted name. Ms. Gambler was told by hospital staff that there is nothing here for you and sent her to the emergency department. She then went for a vaginal exam, which the documents say caused her, quote, an immense amount of pain, unquote. She experienced the onset of, quote, intense contractions, unquote. Finally, on June 12th, Ms. Gambler suffered a spontaneous rupture of membranes and delivered her 19-week-old fetus in the surgical room with 3 other patients, without hands-on nursing care and without a physician having been called. Her lawyer, Sheila McGregor, said they sued to hold the hospital accountable.
These events have been incredibly traumatic for Ms. Gambler, and she spent a lot of time working to get to the place where she can sit here in front of everybody and tell her story.
And they gave
Chief Noski called on Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith to implement Indigenous cultural training.
We, as First Nations people, go to these treatment centers in confidence that our treaty card is going to provide, the cost for what's needed for our treatment. And both levels of government today has basically, decimated the integrity of that treaty card.
Covenant Health sent this statement. Covenant Health takes any and all complaints and concerns seriously, including allegations of racism and discrimination. Racism and discrimination in all forms have no place within Covenant Health. McGregor had this message.
We want this to never happen again, and that is one way.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
To Thunder Bay now, where a verdict is just coming down this hour from the inquest into the deaths of Don Mamakwa and Roland McKay. Mamakwa died on August 3rd, 2014, and McKay died in July of 2017. Both men were in custody at the time of their deaths at the Thunder Bay Police Headquarters. Earlier this week, Acting Police Chief Dan Taddeo told the inquest there was compassion fatigue among officers. The inquest jury examined how the men died to prevent future deaths in custody. They have so far made 35 recommendations. We'll have more on this story as it develops. In Saskatchewan, a group of Indigenous matriarchs are working to address the educational claims of Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafont. Retired Senator Lillian Dick is a member of the Informal Collective and says that universities need to examine how they bestow honorary degrees. She said that the institutions lend integrity to Indigenous claims like Turpel-Lafont's when they grant such degrees. According to Turpel-Lafont's CV, she has been granted honorary degrees of Doctors of Law from 12 Canadian universities.
She won't show this little status card. So there ought to be some kind of consequences. And one of the consequences that seems reasonable is for the universities that gave her an honorary degree to look at the situation and decide whether or not they should revoke it.
In Fall River, Nova Scotia, Regional Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, Paul Prosper, along with Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Mark Miller, announced the co-development of an independent specific claims resolution center. Specific claims are First Nations grievances with the Crown. First Nations have often criticized the federal government for unfair resolutions. And First Nations have called for an independent process to resolve claims in a fair and timely manner. On Thursday, everyone was celebrating the Resolution Center as the solution. Assembly of First Nations Regional Chief Prosper says the process will be fair.
that takes into account an Aboriginal perspective, Aboriginal laws, for example. It will reflect the honor of the Crown, so it will have that constitutional status of those obligations, those legal obligations being recognized by the federal government.
A report from the BC Coroner's Service on the deaths of people experiencing homelessness is showing a disturbing trend. Some of the province's most vulnerable groups are dying in alarmingly higher numbers. APTN's Lee Wilson is working on a series of stories to find out how and how to stop the trend.
A recent preliminary report from the BC Coroners looks at nearly 10 years of data up until 2021, and what it shows is alarming. Last year, 247 people on the streets died, a 75% increase from the year before. Vancouver, Surrey, and Victoria were the cities reporting the highest amounts of deaths. Nearly 3/4 of the deaths were considered accidental, with toxic drugs being the suspected cause. Coming soon, we'll be talking to the families of those impacted, experts, and policymakers to find out how to prevent these deaths from happening.
Welcome back. There was a major setback in Ottawa today for those fighting to reduce the massive overrepresentation of Indigenous women in Canada's prison system. That's because the Supreme Court of Canada ruled that the refusal of a community sentence for a First Nations woman did not violate her charter rights. APTN's Fraser Needham has more.
The Supreme Court said the prison sentence Cheyenne Sharma received for a drug conviction did not violate her charter rights. In 2016, her lawyers argued for a conditional sentence, but the judge refused. An Ontario Superior Court overturned the decision, but Canada's top court has now upheld the initial ruling. Senator Kim Pate says it is a sad day for female Indigenous justice advocates.
I'm very disappointed in the majority decision. It feels like they've got their heads in the sand, and it's some nice academic arguments, but misses in the totality of the inequality that exists, particularly for poor Indigenous women with past histories of abuse, and especially when they're single moms trying to survive abject poverty.
Adam Bond is a lawyer with the Native Women's Association of Canada. He says it is amazing the Supreme Court was unable to fully take into account the historic injustices against Indigenous women and why they end up in incarceration.
But the majority said that, interestingly, that Ms. Sharma should have adduced something more, some more evidence, perhaps expert evidence or statistical evidence to prove that the impugned provisions do cause this distinction on the basis of race.
Bond says Canada's top court has now basically thrown the issue back to Parliament and left it up to MPs to determine how conditional sentences are best applied to Indigenous women that find themselves on the wrong side of the law. Legislation is currently going through Parliament called Bill C-5 that would do away with mandatory minimum sentences.
It is very important, not just that Parliament move forward with these Bill C-5 amendments, but they do a lot more. Parliament needs to act because the GLADU framework is in crisis. It's been damaged. It's not working. It was never intended to be, the one, kind of solution to the overrepresentation of Indigenous people. It's just one tool. Now it's been harmed, so we can be sure that the issues are going to get worse, that the overrepresentation is going to get worse.
But Pate and others in the Senate want to amend the proposed legislation so that conditional sentences can be more broadly applied and recognize historic injustices against Indigenous women. And she says, in a way, the defeat by the Supreme Court provides an opportunity.
We have not finished with Bill C-5 yet, and knowing that this is the message that the court is sending to us, that if we want to see something different, then we better act. And so let's act.
Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Quebec's first ever Indigenous MNA, Alexis Wabanoloat, was denied car insurance because of his on-reserve postal code. Quebec's Human Rights Commission ruled that he had been subject to ethnicity-based discrimination. But as Amelia Fournier explains, his fight isn't over.
Ça a des impacts sur notre dignité. Tu sais, quand on se fait refuser quelque chose comme ça, puis on se dit, ben, c'est quoi ma place?
Alexis Wabanalawat is talking about something that most Canadians take for granted, getting your car insured. He was the first ever Indigenous MNA and has a background in law. But all that success didn't stop Wabanalawat from being denied car insurance by Industrial Alliance, a Quebec private insurer, because he lived on reserve in Odenac, Quebec. He knew others living on reserve in Quebec were having the same issue, and not just with car insurance. Other insurance services have been automatically declined or required payment of high premiums to those with on-reserve postal codes.
On est obligé, selon le Code de la sécurité routière, d'avoir une assurance auto. Donc, il arrive souvent que sur les communautés, on ait à payer beaucoup plus cher pour un même service qui sera offert à quelques kilomètres de là, à moindre prix.
Wabanalawat took it up with Quebec's Provincial Human Rights Commission in 2018. 4 years later, and with the help of his community and Montreal Centre for Research Action on Race Relations, or CRAR, the court ruled in his favor, ordering Industrial Alliance to pay out $20,000 and modify their system so it no longer automatically denies reserve postal codes and adopts a policy addressing this discrimination.
Full said to me it was the first time la Commission recognized some discrimination and the insurance industry for a native person in Quebec. But it's just my case, and we don't have any news about the systemic aspect.
And that's why Foniemi of Cree said it was only a partial victory.
This is institutionalized racism. This is institutionalized colonialism. And this is what I think Alexis is trying to fight. It's more than just about himself.
Quebec's Human Rights Commission announced in December 2020 that they would investigate systemic discrimination in the province's insurance industry, but their findings have not been published and were not included in Wawa-Nalawat's decision. In a written statement to APTN, Industrial Alliance repeated their apology to Wawa-Nalawat and said they were committed to improving services to Indigenous communities. Wawa-Nalawat said he's considering taking his case to Canada's Human Rights Tribunal. Emilia Fournier, APTN National News, Montreal.
Opaskwayak Cree Nation's Rhonda Head has won numerous awards throughout her career, but her song 500 Years, about being an intergenerational residential school survivor, continues to garner major accolades on the world stage. Head, who is a mezzo-soprano, joined Daryl Stranger in studio earlier.
Rhonda, thank you so much for joining us here in studio.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here at APTN.
So congratulations on the success of your song 500 Years. The single just picked up a third international award, this time the 2022 Lit Talent Award for the Best Social Impact Song. What does it mean to you to see this song being so recognized on a global stage?
It means a lot to me because the song is about our Indigenous history, about the residential school system, my mom's experience. And when I re-released the song, I dedicated it to the children who are being found in residential school sites across the country. And it's really important that this song is heard, especially it makes me really proud that it's being heard around the world internationally and about our history as Indigenous people here in Canada.
So what does the song 500 Years mean to you, and why did you want to write the song in the first place?
I actually, the song was channeled through me by our ancestors to write. It was actually the first song that I ever wrote. I never wrote a song before. And it was the time of the government that didn't like, and openly didn't like Indigenous people. And it was the time of missing and murdered women. The movement was starting to get bigger and stronger and wider around the world. And I talked about my mom's residential school experience, and it's just really like all these emotions came through me, and I believe that the ancestors channeled through me to write this song.
Well, if it's picking up all this esteem and award, it sounds like you need to write more songs yourself here. So what's some of the feedback you're hearing from fans and those who listen?
A lot of people, I know they cry when they listen to the song, because it's it's our story, and a lot of people can relate to the song and the lyrics. People that like non-Indigenous people that hear it, they feel the heart. They feel it in their heart of the pain of what our people went through, and it's just really nice to get these awards for this song to be recognized globally and to share our stories with the world.
And you've also got a performance coming up at a famed venue in New York City. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, I'm part of the Flin Flon Choir, and the choir director emailed me and asked me to be part of the choir. Her name is Crystal Colt, and she got an invitation to bring the choir to go and perform in New York City in November of 2023. And because of that, a local businessman, Noel Brenier, he asked me to invite 4 Indigenous youth who are interested in classical music or an opera. So I did a call out, and I made them audition for me, and they're coming with me to watch the concert and just be a part of it and to expose them, especially in New York. It's such an artsy city, and it's really exciting. I'm really excited for them to be part of the show. Well, to come and watch the show.
And what's the venue, Rhonda?
Oh, the venue is Carnegie Hall.
Well, there we go. Perfect. That sounds super exciting. Best of luck with that. We're going to have to leave it there, Rhonda, but again, thank you so much for taking the time here, and congratulations on all of the success that you've had.
Thank you so much.
And congrats to Rhonda on all her success. 3 Indigenous people are among those receiving one of the highest honors bestowed by the federal government. We'll tell you who after the break. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Susan Hare sent in this great photo of the setting sun over Lake Placid, which is located in the region of Mchiging First Nation, about 6 hours north of Toronto. Thanks for that, Susan. We want to see your photos. You can send them by email to share@aptn.ca, and then tune in next week to see if your photo is our next photo of the day. Let's take a look now at Saturday's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 18 in Charlottetown, 15 in St. John's. -2 with snow in Kuujjuaq, +2 with rain in Happy Valley Goose Bay. 23 and cloudy in Montreal, showers in 12 for Chibougamau. 16 with rain in Sault Ste. Marie, rain, and 19 in North Bay. +3 with snow in Thunder Bay, sunny, and +4 for Sioux Lookout. +4 in God's Lake, 4 above in Norway House, 6 in Winnipeg with showers, rain, and 5 in Dauphin. 6 in Regina with rain, snow, and +1 in Saskatoon. -3 with snow in Meadow Lake, 2 below, and snow for La Ronge. In northern Alberta, snow and 8 below for Fort Chip, +1 with snow in Fort McMurray. -2 with flurries in Edmonton, +5 and snow in Lethbridge. 9 above in Vancouver with showers, 7 with a chance of snow in Kamloops, +2 and snow in Prince George, 0 with flurries in Smithers. -20 in Old Crow, snow and 12 below for Whitehorse. -7 in Yellowknife, 13 below with snow in Norman Wells. Flurries and 17 below for Sax Harbor, snow and minus 13 in Paulatuck. 0 with snow in Chesterfield and Whale Cove. Minus 20 with snow in Resolute, 12 below in Iqaluit. The latest batch of recipients to the Order of Canada happened in Ottawa on Thursday. 44 people were invested, including 3 Indigenous people. Daniel Heath Justice was named an officer to the Order of Canada. The American Board Scholar is a member of the Cherokee Nation and has made contributions to study of Indigenous literature through a groundbreaking book, Why Indigenous Literature Matters. Elder Carolyn King was made a member of the Order. She has worked tirelessly to promote First Nations heritage, culture, and identity. King was the first woman to be elected chief of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and Lisa Meaches became a member of the Order. She's a producer of film and television programs, many of which aired here on APTN, and she was recognized for her work helping to organize the Manitowabe Festival in Winnipeg. Congrats to all of them. Well, with the Halloween season finished, the holiday season is now upon us, and one place you can get your gifts is at Indigenous craft shows. Degwagon Indigenous Community Marketplace was organized by Prairie TP Indigenous Home and Gift. It took place this past weekend, where it showcased Indigenous crafts including beaded earrings, moccasins, orange t-shirts for Every Child Matters, and ribbon skirts. There's been an increased interest in Indigenous-made clothing and events like these to help showcase their hard work. Jennifer Wood is with the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation, and her family organized this event. She says it helps with reconciliation.
It makes me proud to see that we are wearing, and we're not ashamed to wear, our regalia, our traditional wear, our colors, our beadwork. I mean, we're in an era of change right now. We're living in the days of reconciliation. So to me, with non-Native people coming out to want to purchase some of our artwork, that is reconciliation to me. You know, it's Christmas is around the corner. So this is a lot of opportunity to buy a lot of good Christmas gifts and support your First Nation crafters.
You got that right, and don't worry if you missed this one. They're having another one on Sunday, November 20th at Sergeant Tommy Prince Place in Winnipeg. Mark your calendars. And before we leave you tonight, 2 respected knowledge keepers from Manitoba have started their journey into the world of the Great Spirit. Roger Roulette was from the Sandy Bay First Nation, and Clarence Nebenak hailed from the Pine Creek First Nation. Both men dedicated their lives to keeping the Anishinaabemowin language and spiritual way of life alive. Our condolences to their family and friends. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Friday. For news anytime or more on anything you've seen here, you can visit our website, aptnnews.ca. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us. Have a great night.